As you can see in the slide, my name is Leonel Abreu. I'm business intelligence consultant in Seidor company in Barcelona, Spain. And if somebody's interested to keep in contact, here in the slide is my contact information. During the next hour, we will be talking about one of the most amazing features of SQL Server 2016, which is temporal tables. Who at least tend to talk about temporal tables? Okay, good to know. Now, this is a question just to know how to focus my speech. Okay. Thanks to this sponsor, this event is possible. Well, let's see the agenda for today. First, we will be talking about what is the temporal table, advantage, and how to use it. Then, the scenario when it's useful, the temporal table, like outfitting effects, disaster recovery, training, analytics, and finally, a short demo of how to use the temporal tables, including another new feature in SQL Server 2016, which is a stretch database. Because one of the recommended Microsoft practice with the history data is to send it to the cloud, and we will be talking about why this. Okay. What is a temporal table? Okay, are also known as system proximity table because it keeps the change of the records. Here, everybody's developer? Okay. Okay, for example, is it not complicated to handle the history data? For example, delete records, updated records. When, imagine, a common application, I have a customer table and the customer changed his address. It's a common scenario. Or the customer changed his phone number. It's a common scenario. So if I want to track this change, I need to do a workaround. Yes or not? Yes. Well, with SQL Server 2016, this is possible almost automatically without doing a workaround. Workaround are complex, workaround require time. So, what really is a temporal table? A table that allows to keep and track the history of the records. How does it work? Well, yes, we have to add just two extra columns, start time and end time, because it establishes the interval where the record is valid. So, how can I do it? Okay, it's implemented with a second table. For example, when we open the SQL Server Management Studio, the table will be identified with a different icon with two tables. The first table with the current data and the second one as a sum of the first table with the history data, where I have stored the records which were updated or deleted. Okay. What else is an advantage? First, security, because it's not possible to modify historical data. This is not possible to do it with a previous version of SQL Server. For example, if I develop a workaround which handles the historic data, my first disadvantage that I'm going to have is if somebody has the correct permissions, can modify the historical data. For example, a sysadmin. Yes? With this feature, it's not possible. The history is the history, and I cannot modify it.
In our case, it's possible to modify actually. If you couple the tail and do some.
Well,
at least do it with the, I don't know.
It's existing versioning of, and then you can edit.
With one of the previous versions of the Cyberpunk 2016, but I didn't check it for the final version.
yes, but the problem is, to do that, you have to disable the system versioning.
Yeah.
So, you are, after doing that, you are getting two traditional tables.
Yes, yes.
Also, it's easy to maintain because I don't need any workaround. And in the traditional way, the workaround will require an additional logic for insert, for update, or for delete. For example, I delete, okay, I imagine the example, I create, and instead of trigger or after trigger, I send the record to the new table, I have to delete it in the current table, and the error margin is high.
Okay, if it's not possible to modify the historical data, is it possible to grant access to the current version of data to all users and grant access to the historical data only to a few users?
Both of them, you can access the history data and the current data.
Okay,
So
it's possible to separate.
it's already separate. The difference
Okay.
is the clause that you write in the query to access the record, and it will be shown in the demo.
Okay, thanks.
And this feature can be used for new tables or existing tables. It also allows auditing because I have the record and I can interact all the data change. What is the unique limitation that I can see? For example, if I delete a record or if I update a record, well, I will have it in the history table. But without an additional logic, I will not know what happened with the previous record. It was deleted or is updated. Now, why we can say this is a time travel? Because we can see the table in a state as of have been in previous time. What is the main difference? For example, I have a backup policy, a daily backup policy. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I want to see in the traditional way the records during the Thursday. Exists a difference between the two backups. The records that were inserted or updated between these 2 days, Thursday and Friday. So, with a temporal table, I can see, including time precision, the exact records that were in the table during that moment. And I'm not excluding records that I can exclude with the first and the second backup. Another nice advantage is the possibility for recovery. Everybody in time made an undesired change operation, I believe, or I execute an update without selecting the word. It happens. So with this, I can restore the table to its original state. It also can be used in business intelligence scenario. For example, if I access this table with a business intelligence tool like, for example, Power BI, Tableau, MicroStrategy, it will do it to calculate trends over time, like slowly changing dimensions. So, for business intelligence, it's also useful, this tool. Finally, the schema is included, but I'm not going to say in this session the consideration that we have to see, but I left a link at the end of this slide where you can go to MSDN and see completely the set of the schema changes that are supported in this. So, a short summary will be something like this. Time travel, because I can see the table as of in any point of time. I can do auditing, I can do slowly changing dimension, and recover on the side operation or disaster recovery. Another advantage, for example, workarounds to implement something like this manually will be expensive, will be complicated, and will not be flexible, because if I change my schema in the table, I have to change the logic that I already do. So, how to start? The first advantage that we have, okay, no change in the programming model. This is a new insight, and in the left, let me second. Okay, I can use transact simple to create it. First, I need to add two extra columns, the system start time and the system end time. It will super operations like insert, update, delete, and also the merge. But what happens with the merge? With the merge clause, the behavior will be like a mix of these three operations depending of what I write in the match conditions. And finally, I can use some clause like between or contained. What is the main difference among this sentence? Between excludes the extremes of the intervals. Contained in included in the result set. How does it work?
Excuse me, but what happens if I use truncate instead of just delete? Is it somehow reflected or not in the temporal table?
Really, I didn't do that test, but without.
You can't use truncate when you have system versions on because it's an DDL command, and that's not supported if you have.
Okay, so it's
temporal.
restricted and the system.
You only have to use delete.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, fully locked.
Okay.
Yes, and also the truncate doesn't write to the transaction log, just truncates the record.
Yeah, that's why I just asked.
Okay, how does it work? First, at the left side, we have our temporal table with the current data. We execute an operation. If the record is modified with an update or delete, the previous record first is inserted in the history table as the old version, and just in the temporal table will be the current record. Another way to see as well. For example, we have two tables here, the parent. The current is above and the parent history is below. If I query with different clauses, for example, select asterisk, I will get just the actual versions. If I query with the clause that you can see here as of, I will see it as of in this portion of time. Another detail, I can include in this clause the time precision for that kind of application that requires to track time. Between, here is the interval, but with between is excluded the string of the interval. And contained in includes the strings. So, another recommendation with the history. Okay, the history is much bigger than the current data. The second point is just a sample. For example, if I want to retain 3 or 2 years, it depends on the business logics. And we have two kind of data. The warm data is the data that everybody queries daily in our routine. The cold data is rarely queried. So, if I have cold data, makes sense to have it in my local storage. If I'm not going to query, if I'm not a business analyst who is interested in the history, no. So we can do something like a stretch database, which is a new feature of SQL Server 2016, and send it to Azure. What will give me this? First, performance. Because the data set in my current table will be a smaller respect to getting in my local storage. So, what is the recommendation? Take in the current table my current data and the history, send it to the cloud with a stretch database that is a new feature of SQL Server 2016. For example, with previous version of this cloud, I cannot do this. And also, is possible to query with the same clauses that we have talked a few times ago. Now, it's time for a demo.
So it will query automatically pass the query to the Azure, yes?
Yes, because it's for the SQL Server Management tool or for the tool, doesn't matter what is the table. It's the same table name.
So the SQL Server knows that it's actually the cloud and forward the cloud.
Can you repeat? I didn't hear.
So SQL Server knows that the data is the cloud, it is in the cloud, so it take it from the cloud and present as if
Yes.
it was on the local machine, yes? Okay.
And
Yes.
is that the only possible solution to stretch the data? So is it possible just to use a local historical snapshot, but not in the cloud?
Yes, it's possible.
Because I'm just wondering how it's stored internally.
What we do is we take cheaper storage, put it in the server or as a SAN storage, create a different file group and put the history table on that file group. That's it.
Okay, so
Very
it's
easy.
possible to
Yeah.
partition it.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I like partitioning. It's working.
Oh, okay. And one more question. Is it possible to purge the historical data that is beyond some period, that it's no longer needed? So for example, to remove the historical data that is older than 10 years, for example.
You will have to disable the system versioning and delete the records. Otherwise, it's not possible.
Well, if you have temporal tables in Azure, then you have a so-called retention period as a setting. That will do it automatically. If you have it on-prem, you have, as you said, to disable it, and then you have to delete the old data, and then enable it again.
Okay, and after it's enabled, they are merged again.
Automatically. Automatically. Put everything in one transaction, then you lock the table, and then you're safe.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Oh, I don't. Okay, that's it. In this demo, I used a scenario. First, I wanted to use the open data catalog from Brooklyn, but I don't speak Polish and I couldn't find a way to change it to English. So I decided to go to open data from Barcelona. Okay, the summer is coming and I want to know what are the best festivals from Barcelona. I search for this. Okay. It means in Spanish, festival data in Barcelona city. Okay, let's click it. And here are the data sets. Okay, 2015 data set. I downloaded it and I uploaded it with integration services to a local database. Switching to the virtual machine. And now in this database, I have the data. With just, I believe, 800 records. Yeah, indeed, 800 from 2010 to 2014. Okay. So, how can we enable this? Okay, I already prepared scripts. Okay, first we have to create a schema. Okay. After the schema is created, it's time to do an enter table to add the columns that were mentioned during the speech. And this is start time, assist, end time. And this is the task that they are going to have. After this, an alter table which enable the system versioning. Good. And good. And if I refresh here, let me show the magnifier. I don't believe you can see the change icon from there. And here you can see the icon change. Can you see it from there? Okay. Oh. Now, I'm going to close the Management Studio to force this to refresh the metadata, and let's see this little change. Table, and now let me go again with the magnifier. Here is identified as system version, and if I open here, I can see the second table with the same structure that the first one. My columns and the two extra columns that we already added.
Can you open the indexes, please, from the history table? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is another requirement for the history tables. It's necessary to have a primary key in the table. Otherwise, will not possible for SQL Server to identify the records that change. Why? Because the sum table or the history table makes reference to the current records.
Okay, but I assume that there is no requirement that primary key must be the cluster one.
No.
Is it? No.
Close the magnifier now.
Press Windows and minus. That is automatically instead of
Okay.
the magnifier.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now, continue with the demo. Okay. For example, if I select this, this is my current data, and if I select the history, nothing, because no change were made. Let's see the data. Okay. Well, for example, this event is so curious. Assistant 0. Very sad note. Okay, let's update two columns. For example, music in the festival number 2. Now I select this, and in the history I have the previous record, but with 0 assistants. And if I go to the current table, I have the number 2 event. Oh, I change the ambit to music, and previously was letters. Again, I will do another change for assistance, and I have the previous record now with music updated, and still 0 assistants. Why? Because the number 500 that we added here is the current record. If I want to see all these records, for example, I add to my select for system all. I press F5, and I have a set of 3 records. The 2 previous with the history, and first the current record. And here, the information with the system start and end time.
But it's different from your computer time, right?
Yes, I can see. The date is okay, but the time no.
It's UTC.
It's UTC, yes. So temporal will only store UTC times.
Oh,
May I ask you one thing? If you could enable the execution plan, how it's how the data is retrieved from the query, just
that's it.
shift control LS and
What?
how the data is retrieved. Because I'm just wondering if those are two separate tables that SQL Server needs to query to retrieve.
What the
data.
time is coming from?
Yeah.
At the beginning of the transaction. That is the time which is stored.
No, but this is what I was looking
Yes,
for. So
it's-
there are two
it's
separate
still there.
tables
Yes.
with separate indexes and so far. So
Yes.
because I'm just wondering how SQL manages the indexes. So for example, if I want to query the data, the historical data, how SQL manages to use the appropriate indexes, because it need to use two indexes, the one for the current
Well,
data.
it's actually two different types. It's like you use join.
Yeah, but the engine must know if the particular record comes from the historical table or not, and use both indexes, I think. To
Yeah, that
the
is
data.
what he's
So-
doing.
Yeah.
You see the concatenation, that means it access both tables?
Yes, indeed. We can see the cluster in the SIG in the execution plan,
Yeah.
because we have two physical tables, the history and the current.
If you don't use the temporal clause at all, you get the data from the current table.
Yeah.
If you use any time clause, you got join always.
That's why I asked to show the execution plan, because it explains exactly what happens.
But there you can see that the chosen index from the history table is not a good one, because it makes a full scan. Yeah.
Yeah, here now.
You need to adjust it, you can do it by yourself. Rob Farley has written a blog post about that.
But if there is an appropriate index to retrieve the data, I assume the engine will use it automatically. I
Yeah,
don't have
it
to
will use it.
put it exactly as a hint or something like that.
Yeah. But here it will always be a scan, because you are querying the ID, and that is
Yeah.
not included in the cross linear.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the
Would it be possible then to create another index on the history data?
It already gets the structure of the main table. For example, if you have an index created in the first table, the structure will be copied to the history table.
Oh, no. No. If you have to create your indexes dedicated on your history data. If you create indexes on your master table, they will not be created automatically in the history table. Ooh, that would be very, very awful if that be so.
But
No. You can create your indexes
Yes,
on the history
I
table itself.
I mean, I create the index in the first table,
Yes.
and when I create a history table, I get the structure.
But not the indexes. No, not the indexes.
and about schema name, so this history data is this constant schema name here.
No, it's just a name. I think. Yes?
What?
You can use any schema you want.
Any.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a name.
So can you create a separate index on the history table, for example? Can we have total different indexes or one index on the
Yes.
main table?
Yes, this is possible.
Okay, is it possible to change the structure of the table once the history was turned on?
Yes, and it's possible to track it.
Okay.
But as I say, there are some considerations that we have to take. And in the end of the slide, I left a link where all of this is documented.
Okay, that's fine.
And when we are disabling this version in future, it is can we disable for particle table, or we have to do that on entire server?
That's for a particular table.
And when we are disabling it, so then how we will see this history table? This history table will become as natural another table?
Yes, that's another physical table. Okay. Let's continue with the stretch demo. Okay. Here I have this option and enable it. Okay, because I directly select the history table. This is the reason, because I see just two rows. Now, what I have to migrate. Okay, by default I have entire table, but if I want to issue some records to send it to the cloud, I can select this option and write a filter. And here, check it, it's okay. It builds the query for me, and it's done. And here is the condition that is going to be sent to Azure. Now, I have to connect to the tenant. This is to do it just for the first time after I'm connected to Azure. In the next stretch operation, will not ask credentials. To be careful, respect to the Azure regions, not all regions works with this feature. I will select USA. And now we have what really does this? Okay, one of the features of the Azure service is the SQL database, but just the database, not a virtual machine with a database. So what I need to do with this, okay, the temporal table sends to an SQL Azure database the data, and I have to create credential to get authenticate inside that repository. No, this is a master key to encrypt the credential that I'm using to access the cloud. And finally, it asks an IP range to store the database, but I prefer to use Server Public. Finally, this is the summary of what we did.
It's cheap, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, 61. Okay. We wait for the wizard.
Excuse me, Once the data is transferred to the cloud and you try to query the historical data, is there any cache managed locally, or the queries always go to the cloud?
Always goes to the cloud because there is a stored stretch database.
Is it possible to get the data back to the local storage?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it will take its minutes.
Yeah, you have taken the cloud center in the United States, right?
Yeah.
Or in South Africa, South America. It takes a while, especially when you go to the United States on border control, giving your fingerprints and your mobile data and everything like
Yes.
that.
And they see if you are not terrorists or not. To be honest, I selected USA because I know it works.
Well, yeah, with Europe too. Europe is fine.
Which one?
But do you know if that is the only way you can put the data in the cloud? I mean, online stretching, or is it possible to just create some kind of data backup or something like that and deliver it to the data center to be restored? Because I imagine if there are terabytes of data, logging them through the internet takes ages.
Well, the stretch database feature is just for Azure. But if you want to have local your table, you can create a second file group, send it to other storage, the physical file, and point the data to the second file group.
But for Azure, this is the only possible way.
Yes, a stretch database just for Azure.
So you mean is it possible to send them drive by post?
Yeah. No, but I know that some data centers use some kind of service that you can take the data and deliver the data physically instead of loading that through the internet.
You can call them.
If you have the Azure Stack at home or in your data center, you can do it the same way. We're just currently working on a project with the bank in Frankfurt, but they are hosting their own Azure Stack in their own data center. Then you have the same functionality.
Okay. Finally, it created everything. We close here. For example, we go to Azure. And all resources. Here is the stretch database that we already create. Well, the credit warning. Okay. And the last 10 minutes of my session, I have it for question and answers.
About moving this history data, they move. So something like they're mostly copied and only after finishing copying they are activated for fetching from Azure or they are I mean this stretching to the Azure service. Is it like some kind of online processing, or this is the time that database will be applied?
Okay, it depends of the query that you write. For example, if you write the query with the old clause, it will fetch the data from your current table and fetch the data from Azure.
Yeah, I mean, and if in this when my query is running, will those data which are currently migrating to the Azure service will be available for fetching? or is it some kind of block, something like that?
You understand you can do. Repeat it.
I mean, for example, we have a history partition, and this history partition now should be some part of this partition should be mutated to the Azure according to the stage configuration. And during this mutation, those records from which are in process of migrating, they are accessible for querying, or they are like a lockout for all time migration.
I don't understand what do you mean can you, but not, can you say it again? But
Yeah, then it's not the way. For example, we have some, we changed a lot of data, and now, for example, like some maintenance job or some kind of it, yeah.
okay,
And new data from our history partition should be migrated to the Azure.
Okay.
And during this process of migration,
yes,
like some fetch them again from those tables with all.
bringing again to locally.
No, I mean just a simple select with time code.
Let's ask different questions. How the sync happen? Let's say I put that records older than 6 months are migrated to Azure. Now, let's say the 6 months just happened now. What happens? Is it bad job? Is it online job? How are those records migrated? And what if the query was run at the date? Is this your question?
Locally, you must write additional logic, but in Azure, you have the advantage to configure the retention time.
But I don't ask about retention time. I ask about stretch table with data moved at not, let's say, older than 6 months. So it's not automated.
It's not automated. No.
It's just one-time action that it moves some records according to query to Azure, and then if I want to resynchronize, I have to make my own job.
Yeah.
Yes?
It's not automatic.
All right.
You need to develop an additional logic.
But in the place where you put the query, which records should be loaded to the cloud, is it possible to use non-deterministic functions like get date or they are older than 6 months as was mentioned, or it must be just the deterministic, so for example, particular exact static date?
It's possible to use non-deterministic. Yes,
I'm not sure, I'm just asking.
Yes, yes, it's possible to do it.
Because if it's all to use non-deterministic functions, there should be some mechanism that, I don't know, watches for the current time and moves the records to the cloud.
So what is the process of moving this data? Is it done by the engine, or is it a separate process moving that data? Or?
It's done by the engine. When I execute an operation, it depends. Or let me say it again. Doesn't matter if it is an update or a delete. The record will be automatically sent to the history table.
And this is asynchronous process?
No. First the
It's transactional process, yes?
first the record is written in the history table, and then in the current table is modified.
So if I lost connection, network connection, what happens then?
You are going to get an error and do the correction again.
I think. If the end of the operation files the 4 operation files.
But for the question that was asked probably by you, let's assume that you updated, I don't know, 500 million of rows, and they are being transmitted to the cloud now. What happens if you try to select the state of the rows before the update? Because now they are being transmitted to the cloud. So is it possible to query those records, or you have to wait until all transfer is finished?
You must wait, the transfer is finished.
Okay, so there is some kind of the log on the database for those records.
So it's a table, yes?
Yep.
Uh,
Another question?
If I do not configure the stretch feature, will all the historical data be stored locally?
Can you repeat it?
yes.
If I do not configure the stretch feature, will all the historical data be stored locally?
Yes. As I commented to, what is your name?
Yeah, I understand. And I remember. And the only way to get rid of some very old data is to turn off the versioning, remove the not necessary data, and turn it on again.
Yes, and as I said, if you want to split, you can a second file group and send a history table to the other one and put it in a remote storage.
So is this stretch somehow prepared for saving money? Let's say I have some data in Azure, and I know there is like one person in my company that will be querying this data once a month. So I want to keep this Azure machine down, and I would like to, whenever he shoots the query, I would like this local engine to automatically wake up the Azure machine and give me this report. Is there a way to do that?
No,
Or I need to manually, start up the machine in Azure?
No, it's not possible.
It's not that fancy.
If you shut down the machine, it will be also connected.
It's part of the table.
Doesn't matter if it's working or not. You are using the service.
It's not like a virtual machine.
Yes. No, just $1,800 per month. Somebody else?
Can I provide my own time of change, or is it always generated? Let's say I doing the update now, but I want it to be effective in history, I don't know, day ago. Is it possible or not?
Well, you have two ways to handle it. By a default date, which is defined when you enable
Yeah.
system versioning,
Mhm.
or using move.
Okay.
Okay, what happens if you add additional column to the table with latest data? What happens to historical data when you add a new column to the latest
The main table.
Yeah, to the main table.
It's not added to the history table.
That's not true. Sorry, that's not
Yeah,
true.
sorry, it's added to the history.
It depends. If you add a new column which you force to be not null, and you have data in your history table, then you can't add a new column. If you add a new column which is by default null, then it works. And if you use it with a default constant, let's say default is an A or anything like that, then it will automatically be inserted into the history table. And that is one of the problems I see with history table, because if you add a new column to it and you give a default to the main table, the default will automatically be distributed to the history data. That is, from my point of view, not right, because at a special time this attribute wasn't available.
It depends.
If you want to have it this way, then you have to use CDC. Yeah.
Somebody else?
Can we use triggers? Can we use triggers in the main table?
Yes, it's possible to do it. Finally,
The triggers involved, is it possible to watch the events, the data coming to the historical table? Is it possible to create a trigger for the historical table also?
Well, the problem is if you have a trigger, You can't use instead of trigger, that's not allowed.
Yeah.
But if you use normal triggers, you generate, if you make an update in your trigger,
After
then you
triggers,
have two
what
records
is
in your
lost?
history table.
Yes, but is it possible to write two different triggers for the main table and for the historical
No.
one only?
No,
Okay.
because that would force you to change data in the history table. This is not allowed.
No, because I'm just wondering if it's possible to create the after trigger for the
Not
historical.
working, no, not on the history table.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Thank you for being here. The session is closed.